Greetings and welcome, patrons of XEP. Thank you guys so much for joining us here on the Xbox Wrap Up episode 3. And in this episode, we are going to be talking about our favorite Star Wars games in honor of Star Wars Jedi Survivor. There are a lot of them out there, and Lord knows some of them are great, some of them are tragic. But I got to tell you, I have some good memories with even the bad ones. And so if we talk about Star Wars Masters of the Terras Kasi, I'm going to tell you right now, I put in 50, 60 hours on PlayStation 1 back in the day, and it was a bad game that I loved. It was a bad game that I loved. But goodness gracious, thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for being patrons of XEP at Tier 3, no less. We appreciate you so much. Logan, how are you, buddy?
I'm feeling better. I know. Okay. I know we were talking the other day when I wasn't feeling so good, but I've had a lot of sleep and I've had a lot of medication, and I'm actually feeling much better. So I'm ready to get jazzed and talk about some Star Wars stuff, because I'm looking at the list here and I'm starting to pull out all the ones that I played back in the day.
Oh yeah,
it's quite a bit. Can
I show something off to you?
Yeah. What do you got? Is this did you move the blade over? Oh, you moved the blade over.
I added a blade to it. Check this out. Oh, hold on.
That's cool. That. I like that it works, you know? I like that they didn't, it's not just a prop. They straight up gave you a straight up lightsaber. And if you just did. Well, why didn't they ever do the blade? That's what I want to understand.
It's more expensive. It was already $300 thing. Here's my Galaxy's Edge saber, which it's pretty darn cool. Now, this is Cal's next to it. That's a hefty boy.
I think Cal's compensating for something.
Well,
it's a lot larger.
The canon, Logan, as you know, it belonged to a much larger alien, his Jedi Master. So that's why.
That's also fair.
But it's a really good saber. It's hefty, and but it's really high quality. You can feel it, which I was worried about because it was limited run games. So
can I share a story with you?
Yeah, man, I like stories.
So back when you might have been a wee toddling when this happened, but back in 1999, the prequel was coming out. Was it 99 or was it 2000? No, 99. It was 2000.
No, it was 99.
No, Phantom Menace.
I got it.
Okay. Anyway, Phantom Menace was coming out, right?
99.
I was living with. How old were you?
14.
14. Perfect age for episode 1 to come out for you. I was living with 3 other dudes in a 2-bedroom apartment at college.
Okay.
And I was going to go see Phantom Menace with my buddies, right? We had tickets to go to AZ Mills Mall. We were at a college that was for 3D and 2D animation, and I had the bright idea of recording everything. And this was back before mini discs and stuff was a thing.
Sneaking a camera in to film it?
No, just the experience, going to the mall, seeing the lines, filming the midnight release of it, and then going to see the movie. So we kind of did everything. So knowing that they were going to have a big to do at the mall, and we get there, and I've got this big chunky camera because it looked like a regular production camera for all intents and purposes. And I told the people that were working at the theater that we were doing a production of a making of kind of thing, we were doing that. So instead of having to wait hours and hours and hours in the line for this midnight release of Star Wars, we got pulled up with the press all the way to the front, where not only did they have the stormtroopers that they had hired, but they had a Darth Vader there as well too, and a Boba Fett, and Alice Cooper, who was a local celebrity. You may have heard of Alice Cooper. He was there
Alice
with his.
Wait, who's Alice Cooper?
Alice Cooper is a famous rock star.
Yes. Okay.
So, but he was there with his kids. And he was going to go see it because he does he plays golf, and he did a DJ thing back in the day for Arizona after all of his music career. So I'm sitting there with my buddies, and we're shortcutted in line. We didn't have to wait. The people had been camped out there all day basically. We got not only did we get to go, because the tickets were just general admission back then, like we didn't have assigned seating. So
Right.
not only did we get to go in before everyone that had been camped out for days to go see this first Star Wars movie, but we also got footage of everything that had been going on, and got to sit behind Alice Cooper during the actual showing of it. So Star Wars for me has always been a very special thing, but those guys and I, we went on, we got like lightsabers before we had like the special effects versions of them. And we would, they were like the flip out extendable ones.
I still have those in my classroom. Like mine from when I was that age, from Phantom Menace's launch. Those are in my classroom right now.
So we had those, and we would go out into like the parks and we would have lightsaber battles and with those, and that was, so like Star Wars has been a very special thing for me for a very long time.
That's cool. It's same for me. I grew up, my namesake is Luke Skywalker, and so I grew up playing or just loving Star Wars. The first video game that I remember playing was Star Wars on the Atari. My mom dug it out trying to keep me like calm for an afternoon. And it was like the Snowspeeder versus the AT-ATs. If you were to look up like old Atari Star Wars games, that was my first video game experience, and obviously that has served me well. I remember the first time the original trilogy was audio remastered and re-released into the theaters with extra footage, and I remember going with my dad to see the first one, and we were like, "Oh, that's new, that's not," and we didn't know how it tied into the overall universe. And in truth, I don't think that added anything to the movies. In fact, I think it took away a little bit.
It blocked a lot of the stuff.
But it was cool to see. And goodness knows, like in the gaming space, I've gotten some of my best Star Wars moments from the games, and just the experiences that I've had in there, getting to live out those fantasies. And I really love a lot of what Disney has done in the film and show space. There's a lot to enjoy. And I think a lot of people get caught up in the, oh, is it good, bad? Like, yeah, there's so many great Star Wars moments. There's always going to be filler things here and there. And the movies are not perfect either, but there's so much enjoyment that Star Wars brings to the table that I'm just ecstatic to be a fan. And I feel very privileged that we get to play games, watch shows, watch movies, have these extended universes. I've read over 100 Star Wars novels in the extended universe before they became legends. The Yuuzhan Vong with the New Jedi Order were some of the best books and stories ever. The Jedi Academy trilogy were just amazing. The Black Fleet trilogy was just awesome. Like, Star Wars does a lot for a lot of people in different ways, and there's a lot to celebrate there for sure.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about games, right?
Yeah, we were going to, and then we just our fandom and love came out. Did you ever play? They were on PC back in the day. The X-Wing TIE Fighter, X-Wing versus TIE Fighter, and X-Wing Alliance games.
No.
Did you ever play any of those?
No.
Oh man.
And I blame my dad for that, because he wanted to play those games, but the PC that we had back then wasn't like strong enough. So we didn't get a chance to play those, unfortunately.
Well, those were some of my first Star Wars gaming experiences that I got to play when they were in the zeitgeist. And they were telling original Star Wars stories in a way that I don't think we'd quite seen before, because you got to play as the Empire in the TIE Fighter games, and then there's X-Wing versus TIE Fighter. But getting to live out being a pilot in the Alliance, and then in X-Wing Alliance, getting to be a freighter pilot and that joins the Alliance and then kind of grows through there. There were a lot of really cool Star Wars moments there. And because it was on PC, if you had the capability, you could manipulate different things. So like I would load my own soundtrack in, and you could make your own scenarios in X-Wing Alliance. Like you could put in Super Star Destroyers and attack them with a fleet of X-Wings and Mon Cal ships, and you could experience this massive space battle that you created yourself with which, Nebulan B frigates, which Mon Cal ships versus which types of Star Destroyers. Did you want to fight Victory class Star Destroyers, Imperial 2? Did you want a Super Star Destroyer like the Executor in there? Yeah. It was cool. Those were some of my favorite moments. And then hearing ion cannons for the first time, that was dope. Like getting to hear an ion cannon was awesome in those games.
Yeah, I think my first like My personal experience with Star Wars games would have probably have been Shadows of the Empire for the GameCube, or not for the
No.
GameCube, for the N64.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh man, I'm playing that right now on PC. Actually,
are you really?
I am.
I bet
I
that's
am.
bad.
It's fun, man. There's some cool stuff there that's neat. And remember, that was on the 64 controller, which was very strange by
Oh yeah,
today's standards.
yeah.
So tell me about your like what it was to play Shadows of the Empire for you.
Well, that was so like the reason I got it was because it was on the back of the N64 box. Like
Mhm.
the N64 console had like all of the games that were like launch titles, right?
Mhm.
And I had always loved Star Wars. You know, I grew up with my dad and my mom who were big sci-fi geeks, and you know, they watched Star Trek and they watched Star Wars, and I didn't have like the daily access to Star Trek or to Star Wars the way I did with Star Trek. So
Mhm.
like getting a Shadows of the Empire was kind of like my way of being like, oh sweet, well this gets to be my version of Star Wars, you know. And I saw the
Mhm.
Hoth battle and I was like, oh well, I definitely want to do, you know, the speed runs with the tow cables and stuff on the AT-ATs and just
Mhm.
be able to like go do that. So but I didn't understand like anything about the protagonist with Dash Rendar. Like all of that was so, it was so kind of beyond what I understood at the time, but it didn't matter because you know, I found out like you got to have fights against IG-88 and stuff. You know,
Mhm.
you got to go and deal with some of the monsters that you'd seen in like the Star Wars movies and stuff. So that was really special for me. And you got to fly a ship that looked kind of like the Millennium Falcon. It wasn't the Millennium Falcon, so it
But
always
in
kind of
some
felt
ways
like
cooler. It was in some
I
ways it
did.
was cooler.
Yeah, and that was like my first experience with like a space shooter that was kind of like a free range shooter, because I think it was before Star Fox 64, so we didn't have a rumble pack, so we didn't have a way to like have that all terrain, all arena mode that
Mhm.
it had. So this was kind of like my first experience of being able to like go out into space and like shoot down other ships and stuff like that, and that was really special. That was really really cool. So
I think what sets those flight games apart were how they handled the Hoth battle, because
mhm.
Shadows of the Empire had a great Hoth battle because it was the first time we'd really done it
Yeah.
in a long time, right? Because in the Super Nintendo, and Atari ones, it was just side scrolling.
Yeah.
But then you got it in Shadows of the Empire. You got a really amazing Hoth battle in Rogue Squadron. You got another Hoth battle in Rogue Leader. And then in Rebel Strike, which are all Rogue Squadron games, you had a Hoth battle in which you were partially on the ground as well. And I thought it was so cool to be able to play on the 64 and GameCube these 4 Hoth battles that were all really good in their own right, but you could see the evolution of it.
Mhm.
And I'm so desperate for a Rogue Squadron esque game, because Star Wars Squadrons is great, but it's not the same thing.
Yeah.
I want a Rogue Squadron either remake, remaster, or just a new game in that, because I want to play on Hoth again, because just there's something cool about flying around on those snow speeders and taking down ATSTs and then doing the tow cables on the ATATs, uh, and hearing kind of the dialogue, like where it's like detach cable, cable
Yeah.
detach. Like there's something fun about that, you know?
Yeah. It's a staple for I think Star Wars games to have that level. I
Mhm.
think it is kind of like everyone wants to do their own version of the Hoth battle. I didn't ever play Rebel Strike. I don't think. I think I stopped at Rogue Leader, and I think because Rogue Leader to me was like the epitome. Like I remember going to the Nintendo GameCube event that they had in Arizona
Oh
at the
wow,
time,
cool.
and it was amazing because it was like, you know, you could sit down, you could play Luigi's Mansion, you could play Metroid Prime, and
Mhm.
they had Pikmin there, and they had Star Wars, and Star Wars
Mhm.
was like the standout because that was the one that was like that was going to be the best looking Star Wars game you'd ever play. You know, it was built off of the experience that they had on the 64, but this time you had two you know, much better joystick to be able to
Mhm.
fly around with and stuff. And yeah, that was an exceptional game. That was a game back when I would play games to completion, like 100% completion. Those were
Mhm.
the games. So that was one that I did not give up on. I played the hell out of that one.
So we didn't have a ton of money in my family, so I was always a system behind until I could get like a job or make my own money kind of thing.
Mm, yeah.
And so my first experience playing Rogue Leader was at Target on the TV that was too high. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was, and I remember prior to that, I'd worked up my own money, and we went to the store to buy a Nintendo 64. I'd saved up all my money. This was a lot of convincing to my dad and my mom because they were of the mind that video games were bad for your brain and bad for you. And
Yeah.
so it took a lot of work for me as like a teenager to say, can we go get this? Can I buy this? I bought this, saved up. We go to the store to buy it, and I was going to buy one game, and it was going to be Shadows of the Empire. And the guy at the Target convinced me to buy a PlayStation instead, convinced my whole family. And he's like, it's cheaper. The games are cheaper. You get this great controller. This was the DualShock bundle.
Oh,
And
wow.
you like Star Wars. Here's Rebel Assault 2. And you have
Mm.
enough money to buy another game. And so we bought a PlayStation 1 instead of a 64, saved a ton of money. With that money, we were able to buy Rebel Assault 2 and FIFA World Cup. And I played Rebel Assault 2 so much, and I loved it. I just bought it during the Star Wars sale on GOG yesterday, and I loved it. There were levels where you were flying. It was very different, but you were flying through an asteroid in the Millennium Falcon, but it wasn't. It was a YT 1200 or 1300 freighter. But so you had all these levels that were just like the 64 version, but they were the PlayStation-esque one. Like you got to fly a B-wing in space, you got to fly an X-wing in space, and they were basically rail shooters. But it was just such a fun game, and I didn't care because I was in Star Wars land, man. So I had so much fun with it.
I think PlayStation really did some really fantastic things for Star Wars games during that time. I know I remember seeing the difference between Star Wars Episode 1 Racer on PlayStation and 64. And I stuck with the 64. Like I never got the PlayStation until much later. But yeah, I remember like just seeing like the differences between those, and it always felt like there was a big difference between the PlayStation version and whatnot. But I'd already bought into the 64 thing. I already had the Rumble pack, so I wasn't going to give up on that. But yeah, I remember playing a lot of Star Wars Episode 1 Racer and trying to get all of those races down, get all the racers unlocked and stuff.
Oh yeah. I did so much Star Wars Racer, so much of it, and had a blast with it. There was the kind of the lame games like Star Wars Demolition and Masters of the Terrascasi, which I still played the heck out of. Jedi Power Battles and Phantom Menace.
Yeah,
not great, but I played the mess out of them and I just loved it because it was Star Wars, and I am so grateful that we had the PlayStation 1 because we had so many games, Star Wars games for it, and they ranged in quality. Like, let's not mince words. But like, I just could not get enough. And then you flash forward PS2 and the GameCube gave you the Rogue Leaders. They gave you Jedi Starfighter and the Battlefront games. Remember the first Battlefront games?
So I never got into those. Because
Really?
I was so like after 2004, console gaming was dead for me. The only game that existed was World of Warcraft. So I never played any of the Battlefronts. I never played any of the games that it took a long time for me to figure out that there was the Star Wars Unleashed games and what those were.
Oh, I loved Star Wars Force Unleashed.
Yeah. So in like Knights of the Old Republic has no nostalgia for me. I've never played any of those. So like pretty much every game after that, like after the GameCube, like I hadn't played a Star Wars game probably until, I don't know, maybe the last few years when I jumped back into them.
There was a weird phase where I went to college, and that was 2004 that I went to college. And so KOTOR I was never into because I didn't have an original Xbox. I never had an Xbox to start, but I saw KOTOR and I saw people enjoying it, and I was like, that's cool. But I was more into Jedi Academy at the time, because on my college laptop, which was the first, like, it was my computer, right?
Yeah.
Because like I said, my family's money was not put into that kind of stuff. We just didn't have it. And so for me to get my computer, I had Jedi Academy, and I don't know if I was hacking it, but like you could pull up the command menu in there and spawn in like assets and stuff. And so because it was Jedi Academy, it had all the Jedi Knight 2 files in it. And so I would spawn in Vader and enemies, and I would create my own levels. And I would go through as this like super Jedi and battle all these Sith and Dark Jedi and all the bosses from it, and just create my own Star Wars stories with Jedi Academy, because it was on PC, so you could do that.
Yeah.
And it was just such a fun experience, because the lightsaber combat in the Jedi Knight 2 and Jedi Academy games were just fantastic. Fantastic games.
Do you think they've gotten lightsaber combat down? Like, have we reached the pinnacle yet, or do you think that we're still trying to figure out how to do lightsaber battling?
I think it's contextual, because you and I are playing Jedi Survivor right now. They have Jedi Fallen Order, and the lightsaber combat is fantastic, but it's based on a parry system. It's based on blocking and dodging. It looks and feels great when it's running well, and like Fallen Order is just fantastic. I do miss some of the flashy, like the lightsaber cuts through anything type elements of Force Unleashed and of Jedi Academy, because it feels a little bit, that's the problem with a lightsaber, is like, how do you put in a video game where it can cut through anything, right?
Yeah,
that's the conceit there. Well, is you need it.
almost anything if you're playing Survivor right now.
Yeah. I'm like, are all these things made of Beskar armor? Like, what's happening here? But I think we've gotten a really good bit, like Force Unleashed lightsaber combat, great. Fallen Order, Survivor, great lightsaber combat for its style. Again, I will go to Jedi Academy. You should watch film of that. It's great lightsaber battles. I don't like when it feels like it's a limp noodle of a lightsaber, like in the old PS1 games. I didn't care because I was playing Star Wars, but like the old PS1 games, it was just like, I'm basically using a stick. Why is it a lightsaber? So
yeah.
And I'll say Fortnite has great Star Wars stuff. The fact that you can't use a lightsaber there as a weapon is a bummer. A regular weapon, it's like a special weapon only for modes.
So. Well, I mean, it's a lightsaber.
Yeah, but like they have swords and stuff in it. Come on.
So. Yeah.
Did you ever play the PC games, like the Galaxies or any of the MMO stuff? Because I never did.
Oh, no, I didn't. I dabbled in Star Wars Galaxies for like a hot second. And I was like, this isn't World of Warcraft. And I went back to World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
So it's a whole world that people have like lived in forever. I think I'm pretty sure they're still doing updates and stuff for it too. I could be wrong about that, but it's nuts. But yeah,
no, they're doing Old Republic. I was saying Galaxies was the first one. Old Republic is the.
Oh, is that the newer one?
Yeah, Old Republic was 2011, but yeah, I think they're still doing updates for that.
Okay, I can't. I get mixed up between City of Heroes and
I have the list in front of me. That's why I got it.
The Matrix and all these old MMOs. What's current, what's not current. But no, yeah, I never got into those. I remember I pre-ordered one of them because it like guaranteed you a mount and the Jedi title. And I never played it.
Oh, really?
So there's somewhere I had an account, and I remember getting like email notifications for it at one point. They're like, "Hey, your account's going to be shut down. Blah blah blah. We're merging. We're going to be turning off the." And I'm like, I don't care. I never played the game. So, but yeah, it's there's definitely been a lot that I've missed out on Star Wars in the last couple decades. But it's hard when you want to go back and everything looks fuzzy.
Did you ever play Lego Star Wars? Because I thought the most recent one was fantastic. And there have been some really good Lego Star Wars games.
I did. I picked up the latest one, the Star Wars Skywalker Saga, and bought like all the DLC. Or no, I think did I win that? I think I might have won that. And I got like everything with it. But yeah, I was playing through that. I had a really good time with it. I didn't finish the game just because I've realized that I don't like Lego games as much as I play through Lego games. Like I had like Lego City Heroes for a long time for the Switch. I bought that at like $60 and instantly realized like I'm not having fun with it. So I barely played any of that. I have like the Pirates of the Caribbean ones. I have the Star Wars ones. Like I have the Harry Potter ones. Like I have the ones for franchises that I should be just like into. And for whatever reason, I get so bored running around smacking bricks.
Oh,
Like it
I love
just
it.
they don't do it for me. I need more substance in there for
I,
some reason.
I need to finish the Skywalker saga, the Lego
Mm.
Skywalker saga, but I really like it. Like, I love
Are
the
you,
flight game modes in it too.
are you doing what are you going through, like Ray's storyline or like Luke's, or like whose storyline are you moving through on that one? Because I started off with Ray and I feel like I might regret that and I should go back to like the old school stuff.
I think I started off with prequel and I'm now in the original trilogy, but I put it
Okay.
down. Like, it's been a while. But I do
Yeah.
need to go back. Like, it's a big game. Like, I'm not saying I put it down because it was boring. It's just a
Yeah.
big game.
It
That's
is.
all.
It is insanely huge. I was really surprised by just how big of a game that was when I saw they're like, oh, we've got it broken down by the trilogies, and I'm like, oh god, it's a
Mm-hmm.
lot. So, but yeah, I am kind of curious, thinking about like how well they've done with that, how well they're doing with Star Wars Survivor, and knowing that they're doing the MMO. I did you see
MMO? No, you mean the massive
or
entertainment, the open
the
world one?
the open world one? Sorry, did
Yeah,
I
it's a
say
Ubisoft
MMO?
game.
Okay,
Mhm.
I
Yeah, yeah.
I meant the open world one.
Gotcha.
I'm kind of wondering, like, when are they going to, like, who's going to be the first one to get the license for Mando and do a Mando?
Yeah, because they had Project Ragtag, which is the Amy Hennig one,
Yeah,
and that one obviously, but there's another one in there. And Mando is a great avenue for it because you get upgrades would make perfect sense because he upgrades his armor. There's a
yeah,
lot of things that you could do with that storyline, especially given Mando season 3.
yeah,
And you don't need to be Mando, right? Like, you don't need to be Din Djarin, but like a Mandalorian would be a great option because you could go the bounty hunter route. You could go
mhm,
the this is the way I'm philosophically in it route.
yeah,
Especially the way Mando season 3 ends. It's like, oh, there's a lot of options here. Um,
yeah. I
and
really,
so go
I,
ahead.
I appreciated that they've tried to restore tried to restore a lot of the storyline that I think gets lost in Clone Wars for season
Yes.
3.
Yeah. They've done, and I know I've said this on our proper show, but like, I really think the shows like Mandalorian are doing a great job at making the sequel trilogy better.
Yeah,
Like explaining things, making it more fleshed out. And I like when the universe does that. I like when games do that. The game, like Jedi Survivor, does a lot to help that era of Star Wars as well.
yeah,
And I'm okay with that. I think that's cool. I feel like the right people are at the head of Star Wars at the moment with Filoni and such. And I'm appreciative of Disney. I don't know why some people are so down on them sometimes because, yeah, Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker were a mess. I get it. But like,
yeah.
in their own right, they're fun. They're about space wizards and laser swords and the galaxy coming together. Awesome. And Star Trek is emulating them and doing a great job of it now. And it's like, yeah, cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the shows are where it's at with Star Wars. I think they're kind of realizing that when you have a long form media to be able to tell a story, it's a lot better than trying to hand it over to one person and let them try and build a 2-hour experience that's going to be like all inclusive.
Right.
I'd much rather, and I think that's what I like about the video games as well too. Is the video games allow you to kind of experience that world without having to be, like having to be like, I looked at my time the other day when I was playing. I was like, I wonder how long I've actually been playing it. And I looked at it, had been like 4 hours. And I'm like, damn, it's been 4 hours since I started Survivor. It doesn't feel like that at all.
Mm-hmm.
Because it feels like I barely got done with the prologue and it had already been 4 hours. And I was like, man, that's nuts. That's a lot of game for a lot of story, a little bit of story for a lot of game.
Mm-hmm. I'm loving Survivor. Excusing the performance issues. The story's great. The combat's a blast.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. It feels good to be a Jedi in this game because they don't
Oh
depower
yeah.
you. So I'm really happy and proud and excited for the Jedi story that Respawn is telling. And I hope that when everything is fixed and running well, even more people get into it. Because right now it's for the diehards, but
Yeah.
soon when those performances clean up, it's for everybody, and that's awesome. That is
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, I just finished up like what I would consider Act 1. that kind of kicks you off into the next part of the story where you have to go to a different planet. And
I think I've just done that as well.
man,
and this different planet's cool. Like,
oh really? See, I haven't gotten it. I was so tired last night. I was like, okay, I got here, cool. I'm gonna call it and pass. I'll pick it up tomorrow. But yeah, that last bit at the end of the first act
where you meet the big bad.
Yeah, where you meet the big bad. Mm-hmm. Holy shit, dude.
And again, a good job tying eras together in a good way.
What a fantastic way to introduce a baddie. Like, I knew it was going to happen. Like, you could tell based on some of the stuff that was going on with the echoes. I was like, oh, I can see where this is going. But dude, to watch that and then to just experience it, I was like, that's going to be good. That's going to be a fantastic. I love these types of heroes. I love the types of heroes, or the villains, I should say. I love the villains that have this kind of backstory, because it's always the most anguished one. You know, it's right there next to Vader, as far as like, you know, you can see why he's doing what he's doing, you know, and it's great. It's fantastic.
My favorite heroes are the tortured souls. That's why I like Snyder's version of Superman. He's like, I'm a good guy trying to make it, but I'm struggling with my place in this world. That's why I like Anakin. That's why I like Jason Solo in the old Star Wars universe. I like when our heroes wrestle it. Tony Stark in the MCU is a good example of this. He wants to do the right thing all the time. He's always trying to do the right thing, and he missteps. He makes mistakes. He's imperfect. And I like that tortured with the burden of responsibility, the mantle of responsibility, Halo. It's tough. It's tough. And it's a good analogy, Star Wars in general, this particular topic, to trying to be a good person in the real world. Like, sometimes we are better, sometimes we are stronger, sometimes we are weaker, not as smarter. And you're just trying to make it and do the right thing and be good. And that's hard to do.
I noticed with all of those types of villains and heroes, the ones that are like the tortured souls ones, I always find that the best route for the story to go is when you have someone, and this one has this, but when there's someone who is when they have more faith in that person than that person has in themselves.
Agree.
And they're constantly trying to get them to realize that. Those are always some of the more interesting, because it always pulls up the you know, how do you tame a feral animal? You know, like how do you kind of do that? And it's a trope, and it's always and it always feels like it's a male female trope.
But all the ones I listed have that, you know.
Yeah.
Snyder's Superman, MCU's Tony Stark, they all have that person that believes in them.
Yeah.
And they don't believe in themselves. And you're right. Yeah.
I would love to see this flipped on the script. And I think Scarlet Witch has done it the best, where Vision has had more faith in Wanda Maximoff than Wanda did. But yeah, too often, and I think this is maybe a faulting in the writing, too often it is the male that is the tortured soul, and the female is the one that has more faith in them. I would like to see that played around with a little bit more. Let's get some diversity in playing around with, like, okay, who's the tortured soul, who's the one with enough faith for both, and stop making it just the heteronormative.
What I did not like Wanda's the way. I did not like Doctor Strange 2 and how they handled some of the stuff. But what I loved was how Wanda would be like, "That doesn't seem fair." Like, this double standard. This, like, she's like, yo, and like, unironically, she's right. She's right. Like, why can't she be allowed to? Why can't? And it's like, yo, your double standards are there, whether it's gender based or not. Like, she absolutely called out the BS of that universe, and I appreciated that.
I mean, like the Wanda story, like the whole thing that they've done with Wanda in the Marvel Cinematic Universe has been something that I am constantly just so enamored with, because it really is calling out the fallacies in comic book normatives, and I really appreciate that. And I think that's why a lot of people railed against She-Hulk for what it was trying to do as well too.
Well, show was not bad. Show was really good. The show was good. Bad. The ending was bad.
Yeah, I didn't like the ending as much. I think, man, I really like the whole Daredevil dynamic with her and Daredevil.
Kamala
Oh,
Khan's show was bad though. That was an objectively bad show. And there's
yeah, I didn't get to watch that. I
it's
stayed away
bad.
from that.
It is bad, and it sucks that it's bad because there's a lot of progress on like having a woman of color lead a show, a Middle Eastern woman of color lead the show. Like there was some
Yeah,
great stuff there, but that show is bad, and
I
I'm just over it.
I
I could
liked what
not get through
they
3 episodes.
the Avengers game. I think did a much more interesting introduction to Kamala Khan than I think
Yep.
what I've heard from the show. So I
Yeah.
haven't been able to experience both to be able to like compare and contrast, but from what the little bit that I've heard from the show versus what I played with the game, I think I preferred the game's approach to it a lot better.
Same. I also think stretchy powers are stupid. Like even with Reed Richards, like I know it's going to be Adam Driver, and so I'll be there day one. But like whatever. Okay. Last question on Star Wars: who is your favorite Star Wars character and your favorite Star Wars game?
Ooh, well, I have to. I mean, my favorite character has to be Ray Park as Darth Maul. Like,
Okay.
he is by far my favorite character. He's been the one that he was given it, like, and Filoni's done a good job of kind of redeeming that character, you know, and they've played around with the idea for both in Mando and I think as well as in what was it, Solo? I think it was Solo. But they haven't ever really like given Darth Maul like a good go at it, and he had a fair bit of stuff in the comics as well as Clone Wars, which I appreciated. But yeah, I love that character. He's such a badass to me. Like that's who he is, and yeah, I love Darth Maul. Favorite game? Oh, that's tough. I'll probably have to give it to Rogue Leader. Honestly, I think Rogue Leader was just it was my favorite, hands down, my favorite arcadey flight simulator of a game, and it encompassed all of the best battles that were in the cinematic universe at the time and did them justice. I haven't gone back to play them in a long time. Obviously, I'm waiting for hopefully maybe the expansion pass for the N64 Switch stuff brings that to us. I doubt it, but it'd be nice. But yeah, I'd love to actually get to sit down because I have an N64 controller for the Switch, and I would love to try and see what that's like.
Rogue Leader was GameCube, but Rogue Squadron.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter.
Your point is well taken. The idea
I have a
of
GameCube controller too. I want to play them again.
My favorite character, I think, is I toy between Luke and Kylo, but I'm gonna go with Luke.
Kylo Ren's fantastic too.
Yeah, I think they need to do more with Kylo because of the way that the sequel trilogy was designed. There are some characters, actually all three of the title ones, Finn, Rey, and Kylo, they need more fleshing out. They need more explaining, especially Finn. But my dream, my closing thought here is my dream would be Mando ends when that show ends. It ends with Luke hiring Mando to go find Cal Kestis. And that would be like, I don't know how Survivor ends, but if Cal is alive, that era of Luke Skywalker finding an older Cal and what that might mean for the Jedi Order and what that could mean for the Jedi and the Mandalorians working together and how that might tie into the sequel trilogy. There's a lot of options and things you could do with that. So
interesting. Interesting. Huh.
Well, that's going to do it for us. Thank you guys so much for joining us on the Xbox wrap up. I hope you enjoyed our discussion. Thank you very much for being patrons of XEP. We appreciate you. Not only are you patrons, but at tier 3 as well. That is a lot. And we are grateful to you guys. So shout out to all of you.
Thank you guys.
Logan. That's it for us, man.
All right. You guys have a good one.